So our approach to construction, anyone that knows me knows that I'm massively passionate about the sector. I've worked in it for many years and loved it very, very dearly, just as much as I love what I'm doing now. So for us, it's about the sector. It's about understanding the sector really well and knowing what actually works for it, not just what we assume might work for it based upon other things externally. So we try and lead the sector, and we try and do that by not just looking at what the construction industry has already always done, but what's happening outside of it, what we can use, what we can implement to make sure it really works and is most cost effective. And we try and support the sector as well. For us, it's about getting best value in everything that we do and advising so that people aren't really wasting their time or their money. With regards to equality, we are very much at the cutting edge of equality, and that's within and external to construction as well. So traditionally, people have always looked at equality either from an activist or a public sector viewpoint. And what you found from that is that it either focuses on business process or it focuses on the minority group and how you kind of shoehorn the minority group into an organisation. The stance we tend to take is slightly different. We say that it's all about the attitudes of the people within your business already, and only once you can get those attitudes to become engaged and those people to become positively happy about in the equality agenda, only then will you like to start to see any real positive change within your organisation. If you start to shoehorn diversity and equality in before then, actually what you're much more likely to see is more discrimination and not less. So for us, that's a key point. So we combine our knowledge, as much as we are a construction-specific equality organisation, we do have a general expertise in equality. It's just we specialise in construction. And for us, like we said before, the most important thing is about making this work for your businesses, as well as the industry as a whole, and clients and individuals. So just a quick overview of why on earth you should listen to anything that I have to say, if at all. So I spent over 10 years on site as a site manager and a setting out engineer. And I like to joke that, I started out as a QS before I ran away to join setting out engineers, where I had all my fun. Then I've spent the last 7 years working in equality and diversity or fairness, inclusion, respect. Education is my original degree out of Liverpool John Waters in construction management. I then went on to UCLan to do up to a PG postgraduate diploma in equality and diversity. The reason we didn't fulfil that to a master's is because I thought a PhD looked much more exciting. So we do that out of Loughborough, and that's sponsored by Vinci PLC. And the other affiliations that we have is that we sit on the industry fairness, inclusion, respect strategic group. We also were, very happy to be part of the Construction 25 image subgroup. And we're a member of the Institute of Directors and a member of the Chartered Institute building as well. So that's a little bit about me. These are some of the people that we've worked with. So ISG are in the room today. We've worked with some councils as well. So Derbyshire, we started working closely with Crossrail at the NHS. Vinci, we've already mentioned, Morgan Sindall, and we also work with a number of subcontractors, including Mac Roofing, and we've got another Mac Form up in Scotland. So we have quite a wide base of people, and of course we do something every now and then with CITB. So the running order today, we're just going to look at why the industry needs training, why we designed it or how we designed it to fulfill the industry's needs, what our courses look like and how they're used, and then pricing and purchasing options. So firstly, why does the industry need training? Now, usually when you talk about equality and diversity, the first thing people do is they talk about the fact that they need to fill legislative requirements or they need to fill procurement requirements. And of course, that's massively important. But our concern is that if you go straight down that road, what you're really doing is you're looking at equality as a problem. Again, it's a problem to overcome. So what we actually like to do is look at it, like we said, that different way. We want to look at the challenges that the industry has. So things like the lack of people joining the industry, poor retention of people within that industry, skill shortage, the fact that we've got an ageing workforce, and instead design our training so that, yes, of course, it meets the legislative and procurement requirements, but actually also helps people to understand why fairness, inclusion, and respect, and we use that overarching term because equality always seems to be about someone else, whereas fairness, inclusion, and respect, well, people identify with that and therefore are much more likely to join in as part of that agenda. So we tend to use that terminology because for us, it's not just about imparting knowledge on your workforce, it's about making sure that when they leave this training, they're much more engaged and much more willing to actually start doing something about it and work with you and your organisation. And we think we can do both, so why not? Okay. So any questions with that first section so far? can't see any writing, so I'm going to assume that we're all fine, but don't worry, if you do have questions, feel free to type them up. So we're going to look now at our next section, which is how do we approach online learning? So our approach to training takes, again, a slightly different step. What you traditionally find around online training is that it has one of a trio of either knowledge base around the subject, so subject knowledge, either online learning knowledge or education knowledge. It's very rare that you get those three things. For us, we think that all are equally important. I need to know not just the knowledge, that understanding of what equality and diversity is, but I need to know how to impart that information on people. There's no point in me just being able to stand here and talk about it highly. So, and then we also need to know what are the best tools that are out there. So what we have is myself, I look after the construction knowledge and the equality knowledge. Then the lovely Matt Crouch, who looks after our education knowledge. He's got 10 years background in education, adult education. And then we've got Paul Floyd, who is our IT specialist, who looks after the online bits for us. So we have that trio that brings strength. We've got a proven track record, and all of our training that's based here on online is based upon the training that we deliver in courses, and we consistently get, pretty much 100% marks of people saying that they like the courses, that they found the courses useful, they found the courses engaging, and those are courses around equality and diversity, so I don't think we do too badly there. And also we have a lot of repeat customers, I should mention. And also we try and understand your style, which I'm going to explain a little bit later, but it's just about different learning styles and how we incorporate that into the training. Then our approach to online learning is we keep pace, so all of our courses are updated on a yearly basis. That's our commitment now, to make sure that we're not just keeping pace with changes in terminology, technology, in legal, but also in styles of training. So, for example, at the moment something called gamification seems to be right on the cusp of online learning, which is where you make the learning more of a game than simply, a passive experience. And that's something we're trying to bring in, because the more we can get out of your employees, the more that they'll be able to take away and they can use in your company. We try and use high tech, so we use things like Scrum, which means you can use it on different learning management systems, and also on tablets and on mobile phones. And it's tailored for you. So not only is it written for the construction industry, because we do everything in-house, it means that we can brand for you. It also means that we can add your own documents and any particular little bits of information that you might want introduced to the slides, that's easily done for us. So how is the training designed to fit the industry? So we consulted with the industry. We aim to have 10 responses. So we went out to 20 companies and we got 13 responses, which we were really very happy with. And we'll share the responses with you after we've shown you a bit of the training. It was around ease of access as well. We wanted to make sure, we know how the years on site have told me just how very precious time is. And we wanted to make sure that this fitted in with your working day. So the way that we do that is we split the courses up into about 15-minute chunks. There's one of them that runs into 25, that's the legal aspect, and that's just the way that that's worked out, but most of them are 15 chunks because 15 to 20 minutes is about optimum. And you can walk away from them at any time and come back, it will remember your place. We wanted to make sure that it be used by office and site, hence the reason why you can use it on tablets and mobile phones. And there's 3 units around it. So again, as we spoke about, we cover the law, so it covers that legal area. But then we cover the benefits, so that's where we try and get people engaged and get them to understand how this is helpful to them as an individual as well as the business. And then we look at in practice, which is, well, what do you now do with that information? So we use industry-specific examples and statistics constantly, and we update those on a yearly basis. And as we said before, it can be tailored to fit industry needs. So is there any questions on that? We're doing so well. So while we're sorting out these questions, I do believe Paul is going to be opening up an example of the training for us to have a look at. So what we're going to do is, this is what the training looks like, and we're going to have a look at some examples. So firstly, like I said before, this is one of the videos. I just check, Matt, is that sound playing? I'm going to just turn that sound down, but as you can see, the sound will obviously come out of the videos. Now, the reason that we have these videos on here is because we want learners to be able to resonate with us as deliverers. The reason being is it creates a greater rapport and helps people to learn a little bit better. It just gives them a sense of trust. We also use myself and Matt because some people will resonate better with a woman's voice, other people with a man's voice, and some people with that variance between the two. Another thing that we need to look at here is if we've got the resource section. You can see within the resource section that it's got a number of different links. So that will take you, obviously, if you're connected to the internet, to a number of different organisations or website pages, and these change depending upon the page that we're talking about. Then over on this side, we have our glossary. So if we just click here, it gives us different definitions as we're going through. And this starts off small and builds up as you go through the training. The point being, it enables people to not be too concerned if they can't remember what one of the terminologies meant. Okay, so this section here is where we give people a choice to tell us about how they feel. And the reason being, we know that there are very different attitudes to equality, and we want to make sure that we can reassure people early on. So, for example, we have choices here which start with the positive, which is something that came back with the feedback. So I know about the subject and think it's important. So that's for people that are already there, right down to things like, I don't know much about it, but I think it might be important, and I know nothing about this subject. It's a waste of my time. So if we clicked on that one, for example, then we start to try and reassure people and tell them that, yeah, definitely, that this is something that people genuinely think, and after all, that doesn't mean that there's a bad reason for that, but about trying to help them to understand why we think that they benefit from a different viewpoint and the explanations that we're going to give. So then moving on to show you one of the tasks that we use within the training. So this task here, because we don't like to just have too much text talking at you, we'd like to have a bit of interaction. We ask people to then click on which of the different what we call protected characteristics, which is a legal term for things you can't discriminate against. So we're asking people to identify them. So if they click on these three here, and we're asking people to do that because we know that people have very different learning styles. So for example, generally it's acknowledged that there's three: there's visual, there's audio, and there's kinetic. So visual learning style, which is why we've got the pictures, and also we've got the text there. The audio is for people that prefer to learn by hearing things, which is why as you hover over each of these icons, it will say disability, and everything else will be introduced by audio. And the kinetic is about people doing things. So moving on. Another diagram that we have, another tool that we use is to try and make things very visual and slightly more entertaining. So this here is about a task about the benefits of equality. And so we use the example of a group of people trying to cross a river. And as we click on each of these, we can see different people have got different ideas about how to cross. But then when we go a bit further, we can see that those ideas differ even more. The idea being that this helps to show people, I have to click all of my markers before I move on. So I've got someone flying. And that's part of the point as well. We make people click on all the markers so that they can get the full idea. You can't progress otherwise, even myself. So as you can see, then we round up all of those ideas, and we're trying to get people to buy in very quickly, very easily, very visually as to some of the reasons why diversity of ideas and sharing is so important. This section here is about we're trying to highlight the fact that we have conversations between myself and Matt at different points, especially ones where we know people when we do the online courses, the face-to-face courses, tend to struggle with the ideas that we're putting across and have viewpoints. So here we use conversations that we would have had in those trainings to put across to people, and so people can resonate with and understand some of the challenges that they might be feeling, so that they don't feel like it's stupid questions or stupid thoughts that they're thinking, but actually really very common ones. Again, here we're showing off some of the statistics. This one's not specific to construction, though many of the ones we use are, but this is basically trying to show us some of the different statistics around religion and belief in the UK. One, to overcome any feelings that people might have around what the statistics actually look like, what the makeup of the UK is, but also, again, it's part of that interactive element. And once again, you have to click through each of them, so you have to see everything before you can move on. Okay? And this one here is something else that we try and do with the online training. We want to always try and create a better offer for you and your business. So the way that we try and do this is by giving you some research and different research points, and of course you can suggest questions that you'd like to be asked. So here we're asking people how many hours they like to work a week, and we've obviously got something quite visual here for them, because some people, of course, do like to work all the time. And so you'd click your answer and then submit, and then we ask people if they're happy for their responses to be shared for research, and of course we check with the organisations that we're working with whether they like to keep the research themselves but not have it go external, or whether we can share that both ourselves for our own research, but also with academic organisations that we like to work closely with. But in the first instance, we need to ask the individual. So the individual will tell us, and then we're saying yes, but at the same time we're telling them we're going to keep that response anonymous. Okay. This final bit then starts to look at different case law that's out there. Now, importantly, one of the things that we do when we look at case law is we look at case law from the construction industry. The reason being that we know that the law can be quite confusing for many people, even though some are more familiar with it. So at least by using law from the construction industry, people can feel a little bit more at home, as well as make their own judgment. So I've kind of clicked across that then, but make their own judgment on what the answer should have been. This final section here just rounds up what it is that we've just looked at and gives people the opportunity to go back over it again before carrying out the test. So now we're going to have a look at one of the test sections, just so that you can see how it is that we test people. It's not just a straightforward multiple test. We want it to make it, again, slightly more interactive and slightly more enjoyable for individuals. So here we're asking which of the following isn't a protected characteristic. So I'm going to pop height over in there. Then we ask, when did the Equality Act come into force? So again, we try and use some interesting photos. So I'm going to pop in 2010. Then this one here, which the statement best describes equality in terms of legislation. So this is a text-based one. And remember, again, the wording will come up when someone will talk over that when we put that in. And this one here is another drag and drop activity, which then we get these right. Which is similar to one of the ones that they've gone through in the training. So, submit that there. So that's about that repetition of activities and people understanding. So what I'm going to do now is pop back onto, well, I'm just going to get Matt. Can you come over here and make sure that you realign us a bit? Ah, here we go. So we're back up and working. Okay, so are there any questions on the actual training itself? And we've just shown you it. Is everybody fine? Right, so Bola, you've asked, how does the training address unacceptable behaviour? Absolutely. So depending on whether you've got the 1 hour training or the 3 hour training, it addresses it slightly more in depth in the 3 hour. We do two things. When we talk about banter, and again, we're always trying to talk about the positivity and how we use things as a tool going forward and what to do. So with the banter one, we break it down into the good, the bad and the ugly. So we talk about banter as a force for good, something positive in our organisation. So we're trying to get people to kind of rally around banter really. Then we talk about the bad, which is when people inadvertently make mistakes. And then we talk about the ugly, which is when it's being used for oppression and power. And we help people to understand what we should do in any of those given situations. And that kind of lays the foundation for us, for people to understand that it's not always a simple case of this person's good, this person's bad, but rather these situations are often very, very complex, and especially where subconscious bias is concerned, a lot of the time people don't even know what they're up to. So it's about trying to make sure that you're creating a culture where good questions and right questions can be asked, as opposed to driving people into a fearful position. When it comes to outright unacceptable behaviour, then we talk about that, especially in that ugly bit, about this isn't what people should be doing and these are the exact ways you should follow. And one of the things that we do, one of the companies that we're working on, is we implement their policies and their procedures into the training so that people know exactly what they can do. And we find this especially helpful for organisations that don't have internet access on site, because it means that quite often people can't access the intranet where a lot of the times these documents are held. So that's quite useful to them. Can you share a sample of the module on banter? Not today, we haven't got that in, but what we can do is we can put you on as a guest onto our learning management system, so you can go through it yourself there and have a look and see how you feel about it that way. So you can certainly get to see it. If anyone else would be interested in seeing that, just let us know and we'll pop you onto that as well. Okay. So now, so yeah, lovely, that's brilliant. Okay, so I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about the industry feedback. So I would say we aimed for 10 companies, so sent to 20 and we got 13 responses, and thank you to those of you that sent your responses back. I know a few of you are here. So the industry feedback, we had 100% of people stated that the objectives were clearly outlined and met. The content was informative, the training was useful. that there was a good level of interactivity, that there were sufficient resources, and quite nicely that the presenters liked me and Matt like that. So that was brilliant, and we were really happy with that. Then we had some more specific points that were made, which was that the course was construction specific, which made it relevant. So we were really glad that was something that companies were finding useful. That it raised important issues, that the balance between the theoretical and practical was good. That's always an important one for us. We think it's important to have the statistics and that basic knowledge there, but at the same time, not so much that it's overwhelming for the majority of people. The interactive aspects were good, excellent pace, but of course that one is usually down to the individual. Keeps audience participation high. That's one of the ones that we keep having, and we're obviously really happy about that because it's such a difficult to get right on online training, and that it was easy to access. So the course information, like we said, we've got two main courses at the moment. The first one is an introduction, which is an hour in length and a quarter of an hour test additional. So the first part of that is the legal matters. So we're just covering predominantly protected characteristics, a little bit of discrimination in there. Then we've got the benefits of equality, and then we've got in practice, and that's the part that covers banter, but also then what do you do as an individual? How do you take that forward? So the total of that test, like we say, is an hour and a quarter. Then we've got the foundation, which is 3 hours long. Now, each of that 3 hours is split into these 3 one-hour chunks, which is the law, the benefits, and in practice. And each of them chunks is then split up further into around 15-minute chunks. So you can fit that in around with your working day. So the law covers them much more in depth. So protected characteristics, then discrimination, then the public sector equality duties, and also positive action and some of those more forward-thinking things. Then the benefits looks at the industry now. So what is the state of the sector? What are these challenges that we're talking about that equality and fairness, inclusion and respect can help us to overcome? The business benefits, how does this really drive a business benefit and what does that even mean? And social and wider economic benefits. So what does this mean to us as people outside of our place of work, but also what does this mean for the industry in general? Then we've got in practice, so with that one we split it down, we do a bit of a longer section on banter and really try and draw out some of those issues and challenges. Then we talk about language because we find that this is often a very big stumbling block for individuals. And then we talk more about moving on. Again, the main point of this is to try and keep this as a useful tool for individuals as opposed to something they've done wrong, which people often find and struggle with about equality. So when you're making use on the 3 hour one, when you're making use of the resources and of the glossary, that's about 3 hours in length, and there's a 15-minute test at the end of them. So we've designed that to fit in with CITB funding guidelines. So the pricing of the courses, so obviously we have different conversations with different organisations, but as a basic outline, the more people you're signing up to the course, the more we can reduce price. So we do have, we're having conversations with organisations such as Seeker and CIOB about having a model where, as an organisation, we'll offer a reduced price if they can get enough people together to buy it, because I think anyone that knows us knows that we're all about our lovely supply chains, and we want to make sure they're getting the best value. One of the other things that we're doing is for companies that employ less than 50 people, but that's including labour-only subcontractors, if they use us for the Be Fair framework, we include their training for free on that, just because we want to make sure that they've got the best chance to get ahead as possible. With the foundation course, again, the pricing goes up a little bit. It's not 3 times the amount, but it's about double, I think, a little bit less. There's no minimum attendees. It's just the less people you have on it, the more expensive it is. And again, the funding grant, I think, is around £35 a head for the 3 hours from what we get from CITB, but we can send you over links to advice around that funding. So other courses that we're producing, so we found that there's getting to be more of a demand for the online training. So we're looking at doing leadership and development for women in construction, and that's specifically the challenge there is for individuals where companies aren't necessarily looking to take up, but we're looking also at a company model. Interview training, which would be an hour-long module, and would look at how you get the best person for interviews. So, of course, building things like unconscious bias and promoting your own image so that we can actually make sure we're getting the best people for the job time and time again. Management training, so that's a step up from this one, which is the basic training. The next one is about how do you actually manage equality and diversity. And that goes a little bit further than protected characteristics and starts to get different learning types, different management types, and different individual personality types, and how we gain the best from our organisations. But see that fairness, inclusion, and respect slant. Equality training for procurement, and there we're not just looking at how you fill in the bids, but actually what's all the other stuff you need to do around that, about talking about what you're doing and making clients aware of what you're doing, so that fairness, inclusion, and respect, like we say, isn't just something that benefits your staff, but actually can start to benefit your bids and your business a lot more. And then finally, strategic training, which is much more looking at senior and strategic level equality and diversity, and how you really can start to leverage and use it to make a fundamental difference in your business.
There are 3 ways to proceed from here. You could try a sample of the course, you could discuss your enrolment options with us, or you could fill in an enrolment form to give your learners immediate access to a course. To do any of these, phone us on 0151 706 8132. Email patrick@constructingequality.co.uk or visit our website www.constructingequality.co.uk and click the Online Learning tab.